Hey guys, I'm here today to talk to you about one of the most frustrating things that we deal with while we're out either dry camping or boondocking in our RV. And that is the inaccuracy of our factory installed water tank sensors. Fortunately, we found a simple solution in the Mopeka ProCheck wireless water level sensor with Bluetooth technology that monitors through your cell phone. In today's video, we'll talk about why we chose this product, show you the installation of the sensor, review the details of the Mopeka cell phone app, and we'll show you how we tested the sensor to confirm its accuracy. Of course, there are some drawbacks to boondocking. You have the high probability of some nutty guy pulling in next to you and using his pressure washer to pressure wash his RV. The factory freshwater and gray water monitoring system that came with our camper is, well, pretty much useless. To begin, the levels are measured in thirds, which makes it really hard to accurately gauge the amount of water that's in the tank when it actually seems to be working properly. But unfortunately, most times it doesn't work properly at all. There are many times when only after a few days of conservative use, our water tank monitor is actually reading empty. Other times it seems to move up or down every time we check it. Well, I know we're not the only ones having this issue. Everyone out there who we talk to who dry camps or boondocks in their RV on a regular basis has given us pretty much the same story about their tank monitors. So I'm curious to know, how many of you out there are having this same issue with your RV? Let us know down in the comments below. When searching the internet for a solution, I kept coming across videos on how to clean your original water tank sensors or other videos on installing wired sea level tank monitor systems. Logically speaking, my freshwater tank should be clean, right? Shouldn't need to have the sensors cleaned. I mean, there's nothing in the tank but clean and fresh water. And I really didn't want to have to completely tear my camper apart to install the wired sea level monitoring system on my tanks. And look at all the work this poor guy went through to remove the entire underbelly cover and insulation, run wiring from the tank all the way to the breaker panel, install the tank monitor display, and then run more wiring to that. I mean, that just looks miserable. So after looking a little further, I happened upon the Mopeka ProCheck water sensor that doesn't require tearing apart your camper. It's wireless, it's simple to install, it's monitored via the Bluetooth app on your phone. Mopeka is the same company that makes the sensors that we've been using on our 30-pound propane tanks for the past 2.5 years, and they work great. Placed on the bottom of the propane tank, they use ultrasonic technology to accurately detect the level of the fluid inside the tank. And we've been very happy with the propane sensor, so after seeing that they now make sensors for the water tanks, I decided to give it a go. And just so you know, we purchased this sensor on our own through the Mopeka website, and we are not affiliated with Mopeka in any way, meaning our review of this product is completely unbiased. To install the sensor, we first had to determine exactly where the water tank was located, and we also had to measure the approximate height of the tank to be able to plug that into our Mopeka app. Now, if you can't get to the tank to measure it, don't worry. I have found a way around that, and we'll talk about that in a bit when we review the app settings. However, you'll still need to know the approximate location of the tank to be able to install the sensor. Like most of today's newer RVs, ours has a protective corrugated plastic sheet material on the underbelly, so we can't see exactly where our tank is without pulling this loose a little bit. There are bolts securing the underbelly on the back of the rig, but on the sides, the material was fastened with permanent pop rivets that could not be removed and reinstalled. So we only loosened the bolts on the back, and we were able to peek inside to see the tank and confirm the location. The rear edge of the tank was located about 16 inches from the back of the RV, and the side edge of the tank was located about 8 inches from the side of the RV. It was a little difficult, but I was able to get my tape measure over to the tank and determine that the approximate height was around 8 inches. I then resecured the protective underbelly. From the pictures of different tanks that I found online, it appeared that we had the type of tank with the drain valve located in the center of the sidewall. So I figured it would be safe to cut the hole on the other side of the valve, maybe a foot toward the center of the RV. Now, these tank specifications and locations will vary for every RV, so be sure to check with your dealer or manufacturer before starting this installation. Before we get started with the install, let's take a quick look at everything we're going to need to do the job. So we obviously have the Mopeka water sensor, and that comes with what Mopeka calls their sonic grease that gets applied to the bottom of the sensor to ensure that there will be good contact between the sensor and the tank. We also have some primer that will need to be applied to the bottom of the tank after it's cleaned, and this will help give us a good bond when we stick the sensor housing to the bottom of the tank. The sensor housing comes with 3M tape on the bottom, where we'll just remove the backing and be able to stick it to the bottom of the tank after the primer has been applied. I also ordered a 6-inch access cover off of Amazon, which I'll put a link to in the description below. This access cover is typically used for kayaks or boats, but we'll be able to use this for our situation where we'll need to access the sensor to replace the battery periodically. The cover is waterproof and opens and closes easily by twisting the cap. And we're going to apply some 2-part epoxy around the ring where it meets the plastic access housing, and also screw up into the RV plastic underbelly cover to secure it while the epoxy cures. Lastly, we'll need a utility knife to cut the hole for the access cover. Before we install the sensor, we're going to want to push and hold the sync button on the sensor while the Mopeka app is open, and it will automatically pair with our phone via Bluetooth. We'll get into the details of the Mopeka app later. For right now, let's get on with the installation. Here I'm tracing around the access cover, then we'll use the utility knife to cut out the access hole. After the corrugated plastic is removed, there's still the thin reflective piece of insulation that we'll need to cut out. All right guys, well, we found our tank heater right here. I can't believe I was lucky enough to cut the hole right at that exact spot, and I'm gonna count my lucky stars because I could have cut through these wires and I don't see any damage to them. So fortunately that didn't happen. I'm able to reach my hand right through here and I can feel the edge of the tank heater right about here. So I'm gonna patch this hole up and I'm gonna move the access to this area over here. Well, I'm gonna have to cut one more hole because I found the strap for the tank that supports the tank, the metal strap, and this ring is not gonna fit in there after I install this access ring. So I'm moving down one more. I can actually reach my hand all the way back in here. I can't feel anything else in the way down this direction. So, and actually I think it's going to be maybe a little flatter as well. This is actually kind of bowed down a little bit where this support strap is, so I don't think it's going to be real flat and level, but over here maybe it'll be a little more level. Let's try one more time. This thing's going to look like Swiss cheese by the time I'm done with it. So one thing I'd recommend doing is trying to cut this and pull this down a little bit, cut one section, get that loose. That way, if there are any wires or anything else up there that could be damaged, you're going to pull this down and the blade is not going to catch anything to damage it. After the successful third hole was cut, we used some rubbing alcohol and a paper towel to clean the area where we were to install the access. All right, this is the important part. The screws that they sent are not any taller than this ring. Otherwise, there would be a possibility of them piercing the bottom of the water tank. So the next step, I'm gonna put some epoxy around this ring, and then I'm gonna insert it into the hole, and then I'll screw up through this bottom layer of protection here. This is JB Weld plastic weld, quick setting, 2-part epoxy, 5-minute set time. Yeah, you can see this 2-part epoxy is a little messy and hard to work with. So another thing that may have worked would have been maybe using butyl tape around there, and that would have sealed it up. So if I do these for the other tanks, I may go that route. And we're gonna make sure that this ring gets installed, this rubber sealant ring. All right, here's this little primer tube, and it says to crush it in order to get it. Oh, I got primer all over my GoPro. You saw it here first, folks. Squeeze that, but be careful, it's messy. It's gonna go like right here. So we're gonna use that primer to get that area ready. I already wiped this down with alcohol, so it should be nice and clean. And we're just gonna get that all covered with the primer right there. Right there in the center. It feels like it's on there pretty good. Apply a bead of sonic grease. And then we'll snap the retaining ring. But we got it on there. There we go. And we'll be all set after I fix these two holes. Check it out, fit those right back up in there. I'm now going to use this turn-on tape, and I'm gonna cover that over, and that'll seal that up. And this stuff is really sticky, so it's gonna seal it up nicely. See what I mean? You always want to keep some of this on hand for just such an occasion. Before we move on to reviewing the app, if you guys are enjoying this video, please hit that like button below to let us know. And if we get at least 1,000 likes, we'll purchase a couple more of these sensors to install on our 2 gray water holding tanks, and then we'll put out a video review for that installation as well. Well, this is the second week that we've been using the Mopeka water sensor, and it appears to be pretty accurate. Let's take a look at the details of the app. When you open the app, you'll see the main screen, and if you have any other Mopeka sensors, they'll all show up in this main menu as well. Click on the Pro Water Sensor, and here we'll see the tank info screen. Battery life is shown here, along with quality of the sensor reading and how good of a Bluetooth connection you have. In the center, you see a graphic with the percentage used, and that water level graphic will drop as the percentage decreases. Under additional info, we see the current temperature being read by the sensor, the update rate, the sensor type, and the device address. Click on Sensor Position, which is part of the app that allows you to calibrate your sensor to level. Under the Firmware tab, you are supposed to be able to download the latest firmware file from Mopeka and update the sensor via the app. However, I have not been able to locate any place on Mopeka's website for any firmware files. Click on the gear icon in the upper right-hand corner to be able to change the device name and update the tank region selection. Here is also where you'll change the tank size to coincide with the height of your water tank. To see how this 8-inch specification worked out with a full tank, we added water until the tank was full and checked the app again. At 8 inches, the app read 100% full. So we then changed it to 9 inches and it read 97%. In light of this, we decided to leave it set at 9 inches, as we would rather have the app showing us that we have a little less water in the tank than have it telling us we have more water than what we actually have. And that's what I was referring to earlier when I said that we found a way around having to measure the height of your tank. All you will really need to do is fill your freshwater tank until it's full and then adjust the height in the app settings just like we did. You can also change the tank level units to either percentage, centimeters, or inches. This next setting is pretty important. The sensor update rate will allow the sensor to transmit anywhere from every 3.5 seconds up to every 30 seconds. While making the initial adjustments for your sensor, you will probably want to leave this at 3.5 seconds. However, after you're done with those adjustments, I would highly recommend moving it all the way out to 30 seconds. This will significantly save on battery life and keep you from having to crawl under the camper to change the battery in the sensor quite as often. Finally, you can turn notifications on or off, set the alarm threshold and notification frequency. Before we left our last location, the Mopeka app was showing that we still had 39% of fresh water in our holding tank. So to see where this lined up, I decided to drain the rest of the tank and monitor the progress via the app. After the first 5-gallon bucket was full, the app showed us sitting at 31% or a decrease of 8%. The second bucket took us down to 24% or a decrease of 7%. And the third 5-gallon bucket took us from 24% to 15% for a decrease of 9%. At 15%, the sensor no longer showed percentages and only showed a warning that the tank was low. The fourth and final bucket filled almost to the top and the tank was empty, essentially showing that the last 5 gallons took the sensor from 15% to 0. If I take 39%, which is what we started with, and divide that by 4 5-gallon buckets, that's an average of 9.75% for every 5 gallons. So obviously it doesn't seem like the sensor is 100% perfect in its accuracy. However, it's pretty close, and it's heads and tails above the factory monitoring system that came with our RV. Stay tuned as we'll do an update down the road on this, and I'd actually like to do the same exact bucket test with a full tank of water once we're back in an RV park on hookups to see how that turns out. Well, that's it for today, guys. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell below to ensure that you're notified each time we put out a new how-to video just like this one. Also, we'd love to hear from you, so please feel free to let us know if you have any questions, or maybe just send us a message in the comment section below. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.